Alright, hello everyone, I am back with my 112 project. So, let me show you where I'm at the moment. As you can see, and if you can count, I have 3 pans with me. This is the one that I'm running right now. That's my 112 FP with the brand new body, which is the fastback Lola that I showed before. Fantastic looking body to drive, super nice handling. That is the gorgeous Phantom from Kyosho, and this is the other version of the Lola. As you can see, the back is different. This is a plastic piece at the back instead of the hard wing, and a clear window here that I didn't cut for the downforce, so resembling the back of a pan, except that it's more above the axle than at the back of the car. So let me show you what's underneath. This is my current gear that I'm running. So for you familiar with the channel and with my Facebook page and so on, you'll know this car, and I haven't changed anything. It is the tri-damper setup. I have 2 gold springs inside there. I'm still running the super shorty lipo. I have rigidified, semi-rigidified the front end, so it is more of a sway bar than a floating front end, and I'm running soft springs at the front. So this is pretty much as far as I can go with the original FP platform. So you can see it is a one-piece chassis with a flex cut here to have a T-plate, but the T-plate is part of the 2 mm carbon chassis. So this is a super good driving car. It is very classic in the way it drives. It is not there is nothing eccentric on it or outrageous, and that the original idea, of course, was to emulate the 1/8 classic class that they are running in Europe, but specifically in France, which are basically complete pans from the front to the rear, no suspension, no dampers, nothing, one full pan and a floating front end that can pivot on 2 points, no spring at all, nor in the front nor in the rear, or dampening. So for that old car, I ran this body before on that pan before I've made the new body. And so the old one, I am going to do a rigid setup for it. So I have rigidified the entire back here, no more dampers, no more nothing. It is completely rigid, so no more acting of the T-plates. This is going to be the battery hold. I'm going to run low center of gravity 2S lipo, and I have cancelled the springs in the front, so now it is running completely rigid. And of course it is floating front end, so the front can sway right to left, everything else is rigid. So this is really going to be the same setup as a classic, and I'll see how it goes. I might or might not run it with a spool at the back, I'm not sure yet. I'm going to start with the diff, and I might try with a spool. Now for the new version of the pancar. So first of all, this is the other body. You can see the rear is different compared to this Lola. This is a really heavy back end over there with the diffusers and the vents and everything. This one is much more light at the back, although the body is by no means light compared to any 112 body. It's a fairly heavy body, it's fairly thick, and there is a hard SLA a light bucket in the front, stiffener at the rear with the exhaust and the light buckets, and the pretty big roll cage that mounts the body together, the body piece together, and the helmets over there. And so underneath this beauty here is what I've been working on, and if you've been following the little series that I've done designing the car, then you can see how this came about from the original car. And so this is the new version of the pancar. It's a proto. I've had some issue with the manufacturing of the chassis plates, so I'm waiting for new chassis plates to come out. Nevertheless, I've still prototyped this one, and I'm going to test it out. So you can tell parts are similar. The bumper is a new bumper, but this is just longer and larger bumper that I'm going to fit on all the pancars. Is just going to be an option part for the old car. It is the same, the mounting points are the same, it's just lighter, wider, larger, wider, and a little breakage point here, which would help with crashes to destroy the bumper and not the car. Although those bumpers break fairly easily over here on a very fast impact, so this bumper is good. I just wanted something that was sticking out more outside of the body to take the damage instead of the body. The front end is not floating any longer. It is mounted on a hard ABS part, so it is not, is going to sway really slightly, but really not much. Same front end otherwise, same servo mount, same C-hubs, and same pod at the rear, although now there is a new pod brace at the top that you can see is very long, sticking out to the front. The chassis is completely new. Now it is a chassis that is now designed the same as my 128, my PCOO, which means the flex plates, the flex cuts are now lateral here, and so the flex, the pivot point for the rear is all the way to the middle, pretty much the middle of the chassis here. So it is a very vertical action up and down, and then there are a lot of different options for setting up the suspension. The battery is one-way mount only, although you can run a super shorty if you want, sliding them to the front or the back. I'm going to run the LCG LiPo, so it is pretty much, that's the height of the LiPo. Here is the same height as a 1S LiPo shorty pack. You can see there are mounting holes here is going to be for the body post, so same holes as over here, same as before. So every body post mounts are the same. You can just switch body between the two platforms easily. The second mount would be for mounting a damper tube. There are three holes here around. Actually, there might be four. Let me check underneath the spring. Now there are three holes, so one in the middle, two on the side. So you can run a single damper tubes to do lateral movement, or you can run two damper tubes if you have maybe a track that is more heavy leaning on one side, or you just want to tune it just a little bit more. And then the third hole here is going to be to mount the lateral springs like you would have on F1 cars around the links. So I am waiting for some ride springs and spring mounts that are going to go over here, and then mounted on the side here are the diffusers that are just before the rear wheel, and that are going to provide quite a good amount of downforce below the car at the rear. And so overall the chassis is the same as far as mounting points of everything as the one before. Well, I should say pod and front end. In the middle everything is different. So you can see as well that the chassis is a lot larger, wider. The original chassis is very, very, very narrow, so it was a design choice, and to keep it as well as flexible as possible. This one is going to be a lot less flexible laterally than before, especially right now. I have mounted every dampers that you can mount. I have the damper plates over here, and I have a damper tube in the middle here, so no droop, and or very, very slight droop, but the droop is actually sprung. And then I have the spring over here for the upper action, so it is very limited in the amount that it can move. Right now it is set up for very flat track, and now I'm going to be able to go and play with the prototype, so that is going to be cool. I'm waiting for the same electronics that I have on my actual car. I'm going to have pretty much I'm going to have R6 in the front. I'm going to run the same Futaba, same Just Stock X10 and Just Stock 13.5 ESC, the same Team Saxo. So every running gear inside the car is going to be the same, and this is going to allow me to really be able to test the difference between the very classic narrow chassis with a somewhat traditional T-plate, although you know it's not a T-plate, it is part of the main chassis plate, and see the difference with bringing basically my 128 to 112 scale, and see how things go. I'm going to be able as well to see how fun it is to play with the diffuser at the back, and I'm going to run them with both of the classic Lola bodies on. So that's going to be a nice pair, if I might say so, to bring outside. And then once I have found some spare electronics, I will have as well the Phantom with the entirely rigid pancar to play around as well. But this is going to be really only for going to the nice big track or the carpet track, because I can really not run it on my local track in Cincinnati. That's crazy bumpy if you've seen the video. Those are going to be okay for the bumpy track, but I want to run primarily some tests on the large PYC track that I shot the video at last time, because it's really consistent. The surface is really good for the pan. So I will come back with some news with those as soon as I have gotten the electronics. For the parts availability, this is going to be in a little while. The bumper is going to be available, spare front ends are going to be available. Of course, you can mount the pod brace with the long head on this car as well. It is the same. You can fit it on there, you can fit it on the F1 as well if you want, but really for there it is quite good if you want to run a very far forward suspension or damper. And I have new battery mounts for the FP as well that are going to come on the web store very soon. So I will keep everyone updated on the pancar project once I'm able to go and do some test run with it. Alright, so in the meantime, stay sane and safe. See you everybody. Bye bye.